Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to everyone and share some information. We're almost a year. March 11th was where we started with this, and now we have had 5,000 souls lost, countless ways of disruption of families. And we're starting to see some things that are encouraging. So over the next few minutes, I want to accomplish basically three things. I want to have a brief discussion about what's available. I want to have a brief discussion about how you can access it, and then another conversation about some special populations. So let's see if this advances. And there we go. Okay, so this is updated vaccination data. When you look at the program in the state of Arkansas, we can look at the number of doses that have been received and the number of doses that have been given. I just put this up there just as a point of reference. It says about 68% of the doses have been given. Now, the vaccinations that we have available in the state currently are 2-dose vaccine series. So when you receive a first dose, what you want to make sure is that that second dose is there when you are due for it. So when you see these numbers, don't get bent out of shape in terms of thinking that we're just hoarding the vaccine. It is getting out into the state, it's getting distributed, and it is getting into the arms of folks who need it. I will say the one thing that we have to keep in mind is that vaccines are not the solution. Vaccination is the solution. So simply having a vaccine available, but one that is not utilized is not going to be that advantageous. So this is just simply a number to be aware of. Now, Dr. Jones did a great job discussing emergency use authorization and approved. So we currently have 2 vaccines that are in circulation within the state, and these are under the process of emergency use authorization. There was one vaccine that first came on, which is the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, and the second is the Moderna. And I'm not going to go too much, I'm not going to go into the technology, but I'll refer you back to the slide that Dr. Jones showed that said that when a person comes in contact with the virus and they contract it, their body develops antibodies, and those antibodies help to fight off the infection. So I will think about antibodies. I will think about that immune system response as basically an army. This is the army that you're mobilizing. So if we can have a ready army that is prepared to fight when in fact it faces the enemy, that enemy being COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, then we are in a better position. As Dr. Jones said, you're walking around through your life, you contact the virus, it infects, and the inflammatory response starts, and now you're trying to get ready. Vaccinations allow us to get the army ready and be prepared to fight when in fact it encounters the enemy. So about these 2 vaccines, Pfizer-BioNTech is for those individuals who are age 16 years or older, and it's in a 2-dose series. And so we kind of think about it as a prime and a boost. So you get the injection given into the arm, and then your body says, okay, I think I know what this is. I'll start to get the army ready. And then you come back in 21 days and you get the second shot and you get a more robust immune reaction. And about 2 weeks after that, we're thought to be fully immunized. So that's that part. And then the efficacy is about 95% efficacy. And so really what we're wanting to do is get to a point where people don't contract the infection, but really the great end point is that they don't get really sick and they don't die. That is what we need to achieve. Now, efficacy, what that really means is in a perfect world, in a perfect situation with a controlled population and people doing exactly what they're supposed to do and coming back on day 21, that's when we see the 95% efficacy. Now, effectiveness really means what's the real world? Maybe you have a snowstorm that disrupts your ability to get back to the vaccine. You may have some real world things that could impact that a little bit. But the idea is that you need to get both of the shots. Pfizer, you want to, if you start with that vaccine, you should complete that with the same product. At that 21-day point, you can see the common side effects: pain at the injection site, tiredness, muscle aches, chills, joint pain, and fever. Moderna is for those individuals who are 18 years and older, and it's a 2-dose series, and it's separated by 28 days. Again, over 94% effectiveness, 94% efficacy. And if you start with this vaccine, you would like to finish with the same vaccine, and the similar side effects occur with this one as well. There are some more vaccines that are coming down the pike. And one resource I would refer you to is a really cool website, is the New York Times vaccine tracker. It's a great, easy to read site that is updated regularly, and it will tell you about all of the vaccines that are in. So, you could have a 2-hour discussion about every vaccine, but not every candidate is going to actually make it over the finish line. So we'll talk about the ones that are there. So now, back in December 2020, we talked about a few vaccines that are coming up in phase 3 clinical trials. And most recently, you may have heard information about Johnson & Johnson's vaccine, which is the Janssen COVID-19 vaccine. And that looks like it may be the next one that will become available. Now, this is a press release, and this is from the Johnson & Johnson website. You can see it's dated January 29th. And these things start off with a press release saying, this is what we found. Let's tell the people. But that doesn't mean that it's gone through authorization. Okay, so it will go to the ACIP, and then they will, and the FDA, and they will make a determination as to whether or not it meets. Once they review the data and they review the study, they will see if this gets granted emergency use authorization, and hopefully it will. And while you see that the candidate, if you can see up here, will say the vaccine candidate, let me go back, has about a 72% effective use in the US and 66%. Now you may say, well, that's not good. The other one had 94%. The benefit of this one is it's a single shot. Okay, so if you get the first shot, and that is all you need to do. So there's an ease of administration. You don't have to worry about people coming back for the second dose. And the more people that we have that are vaccinated, the more that we will have protected, and the sooner we will get to the other side. Now, in the state of Arkansas, as with everyone else, the supply has been limited. And so we've had a sort of a phased rollout. And I just want to kind of point on to this so that people sort of know what it is. We started with phase 1A. And this was for those individuals who were at highest risk. These are the higher priority folks. And this is going to be people who are in long-term care facilities. And if you think about the age group and where we've seen the deaths, older population, folks who are in these congregate settings, long-term care facilities, those individuals are in the phase 1A group, as well as high priority healthcare workers, folks who are working in the emergency room, because they're truly on the front line. These are the individuals who are, as soon as you get to the hospital, they are taking all comers. So they don't know what they're walking into. And our pre-hospital folks, our emergency, our EMS, our fire and law enforcement, who are walking into situations on a daily basis. So that was phase 1A. Phase 1B, which is where we are now, we began on January 18th, and it's kind of been a rolling phase with phase 1B, individuals who are age 70 years or older. And this also includes in education, including those in K through 12 and some in higher education groups. You can see where it says frontline essential workers, and I will tell folks, you can look at this and you'll say, well, I see people who are missing, who probably should be in this group. This is a build the boat as you sail, a build the plane as you fly. Some of these groups will be added on. Folks will likely be added on. But one of the limiting factors that we've had is supply. And then phase C, hopefully we will enter this in April, assuming that supplies are more robust. And if the J&J, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine comes on, that will certainly make it easier. That'll be individuals who are age 65 to 69, people who are 16 to 64 with high-risk medical conditions, and again, more essential workers as well. So one population that I like to refer to is a population of pregnant women and women who are lactating. So in vaccination studies, there quite often pregnant women are just simply left out. I mean, that's just simply the fact. And there were no pregnant women who were involved in the studies of the vaccines that we have available currently. But happy to say that is changing, because I read a press report of a study that is developed starting soon that is directly enrolling pregnant women. Now, for pregnant women with COVID, the absolute risk of contracting COVID is low. Okay, but pregnancy itself can be a condition where the immune system is suppressed, and we knew this from our experience with H1N1 and influenza, that pregnant women who contract those infections those viral infections can have a very severe course. And while we suspected that may be the case for those women with COVID who became pregnant, over time we've come to see that that in fact is the case, that they can have a more severe illness than their non-pregnant cohort, that they can have a greater risk of ending up on a ventilator, they can have a greater risk of dying, and they can have a greater risk of preterm birth. So that sort of colors the decision, because now you have to make a decision. Do I take a vaccine that we're still learning about, or do I take my chances that I will not contract COVID? And in a somewhat cynical way, I feel like we're all in this situation. We are either A, we're waiting to get a vaccine, or B, we're waiting to get COVID. And it just sort of comes down to that, and how do you think your odds are? But based on what we know, which is very little at this time, and based on expert opinion, we do think that the mRNA vaccines, which are the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines, are unlikely to pose any great risk to the pregnant woman, pregnant person, or to the fetus. And we don't think that the vaccines are going to pose any great risk to the breastfeeding infant. And you can say, well, do we have any experience with that? The answer to that question is yes, because with influenza, we do encourage all pregnant women to take the vaccine at any point in their pregnancy. The vaccines that we're talking about are not live virus vaccines, so we're not giving someone the infection. We are giving someone the mRNA, as was discussed earlier, to generate a protein, which the body will then recognize as a stranger in a foreign land that does not belong there, and the army will be mobilized and prepared to fight it. That's how I explain it to my patients. But then the real question becomes, do I take this vaccine or not? I'm pregnant, yes or no? That's the question. And the answer, I encourage patients to take it. But it is a process of shared decision-making, knowing full well that we have more to learn, okay? I think you have to weigh the risk of what's your environment? What's your work environment? What's your home environment? What is the environment if you're living solo in the woods by yourself and you're growing your own food and you don't have to come in contact with anybody, that's one thing. But the reality is most people have to go to work. Some jobs are more high risk than others. And once you come in contact with it, taking the vaccine at that point will not offer you the protection that you would have received if you had it on the front end. But as I said, the good part is a study is being started very soon that will be specifically addressing it for pregnant women. And the expert opinion that I referred to, there are two general organizations that make a lot of recommendations regarding women's health, and that's the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, and they both endorse that women should have the option to choose to receive this vaccine if they want it. So that's all good. Now, next question is, how do I get it? So if you go to the Arkansas Department of Health website at healthy.arkansas.gov, there's an interactive map. And if you were to scroll across this map, it will highlight and give you the phone number and address for places where the vaccines are offered. Now, we mentioned that the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines are the two that are currently available within the state. One vaccine is not recommended above the other, okay? In the hospital settings, due to sort of the supply chain and the storage issues, the Pfizer one was a little bit more difficult to store, and it is not the one that you may see in some of the local pharmacies. Now, it's really important that you know which vaccine you receive so that when you go for your follow-up, that you receive the same vaccine. So I encourage everyone to go to this website, click on the link. And the other thing I would say about this, everyone on this call, I know, or Facebook or streaming or wherever, there's a baseline of tech knowledge that you have to be able to do this. But I have an 80-year-old mother, and while she has an iPhone, getting her to go to the website, to screen, to find it, to find the interactive one, to navigate to the pharmacy to get it, that is not necessarily something that is easy for her to do. So I think it's important that everyone not only take this information, but share it and get it to the folks who need it that are within our circle. So So if you have if you're an individual, you'd reach out to your local pharmacy or provider and let them know that you need the vaccine. We ask that you don't clog up the lines and get in queues at 5 and 6 different places. And I know we've seen stories where folks are flying across the country and driving across the country to sort of lines up. And this is, I always kind of think of the tragedy of the commons. If everyone sort of overuses the resources, then, we don't really get through the line efficiently. Contact your pharmacy. The Department of Health is a supplier of the vaccines. They always ship them, and then you should make an appointment for your second dose when you get your first dose. And if you're in a school or a place of employment, those places are quite often coordinating the vaccine events. So I put some helpful links up here, and I just hope you maybe take a screenshot of that, and that will help to guide you. There's certainly a lot more information that we could go into, but I want to make sure that you guys have useful information and we get your questions answered. So our best shot to get back to normal, as we mentioned, wear your mask, watch your distance, wash your hands, and please take the vaccine. Thank you.